Do you like guns?
Yay!
Do you like robots?
Yay!
Well, have I got the game for you. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a look at Hard Reset Redux on Steam. The game begins as we follow our main protagonist, Sergeant Fletcher, whom of which works for the corporation. I assure you that's actually what they're called. I didn't be lazy with the writing of this review. That's actually what they're called. They are called the corporation. He immediately gets called into a mission in order to stop some robots that happen to be rampaging in the city. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where our story begins. The game is essentially an old school styled first person shooter where you must go from level to level, doing everything in your power in order to destroy all of the robots that may lay within your path, all the while pushing forward to the end of each level of the game. What sets this apart from most first person shooters of the style, however, is held within Sergeant Fletcher's arsenal, as instead of offering a large variety of normal weapons to choose from, you are instead given 3 basic weapon types that you are able to modify during the course of the journey. These weapons come in the form of a physical weapon, an NG weapon, and a sword, which honestly I rarely use because I always ended up dying as soon as I wielded the damn thing. Seriously, not even 30 seconds of picking it up in the first place. I died. It's ridiculous. As you destroy robots, you receive experience points that you are able to spend at various vending machines littered throughout each stage. Here you are able to pick up different modifications for each weapon, including the likes of a rocket launcher for your physical weapon, which I started using as my standard weapon after purchase. That shit is useful as hell. And an electric Sith Lord blast type energy gun modification, and even a rail cannon, which usually serves as a form of a sniper rifle during the course of my personal playthrough. The sword, however, offers no modifications, which I feel is a tiny bit of a missed opportunity. After acquiring a weapon mod, you are able to swap between previously collected mods at will by simply pressing the number keys on the keyboard, which I simply love because it allows me to get creative in the middle of a gunfight and work out exactly what weapon combination can push out the most damage. And I feel that each and every mod available during the course of the game is unique enough and offer their own unique strengths and weaknesses to be able to be creative, really, with your shooting. The level design, for the most part, does feel pretty unremarkable, I'll be perfectly honest. And generally I found myself simply wandering about mindlessly until the next wave of enemies spawned in, especially in the first few levels of the game. However, the game does attempt to combat this by occasionally chucking a couple of maneuverability or switch-based puzzles at you from time to time. However, I find these more to be a bit of a minor setback than anything worth talking about in bulk, and it's clearly obvious that the game was built purely around the combat first, with the levels themselves being more of an afterthought, and it's definitely not up to the standards set by other old school styled first-person shooter titles. I do, however, feel that said combat makes up for the subpar and occasionally boring level design, especially with the emphasis on utilizing and switching out the modifications for maximum effectiveness. It offers a surprisingly large level of challenge too in a couple of instances, and if you aren't careful enough, you can very likely find yourself dying quite often. Although many deaths in my personal playthrough were quite rare, I can imagine quite a few people having trouble. An aspect of the combat that I do love is the fact the game does reward you for using the environment to your advantage. For example, if you see an electrical thingy on the wall, shoot it and you can shock many foes coming your way. See that explosive barrel? Just shoot it and boom! Inflict massive damage. Crushers? No problem. Just lure the enemy into them and see them get squished. The only sort of issue I have in regards to the environments in this game, however, is the fact it doesn't really seem to offer nearly enough instances to use it to your advantage. For a large part of the game, you are usually just shooting explosive barrels, unless I was simply blind personally to see other things lying about while playing, and the instances such as what I've previously mentioned, with the crushers for example, are very few and far between. Those who have played the original Hard Reset and want to check this one out may want to look up the difficulty first, however, because the difficulty level has actually been decreased from what I've heard online in comparison to the original version of the game. Personally, I haven't played the original version of the game, but I figured it's something I might as well highlight just in case. Each weapon modification that you are able to pick up, however, doesn't have its own unique ammunition. So if you use rockets a lot, for example, you will notice a large chunk of your physical ammo depleting, which I feel serves as a decent way to help push you to swap between different weapon types and mods throughout the course of the game. Whenever you're having to use a weapon type for a while, its ammo pool will slowly regenerate on its own. And there are also ammo pickups occasionally littered throughout the world in order to use if need be. Obviously the sword doesn't use ammunition. That would be stupid! It's a sword! Why would you use ammo to swing the... You go in like this! So obviously that doesn't use ammo. I did find it kind of awkward as well to switch out the different weapon types at first, as they are assigned to F1, F2 and F3 by default. Fortunately, the game itself does offer key customizations, so fortunately, I could switch them out to something a little bit less awkward to press. There's also a funky dodge type maneuver that you can pull off by tapping the shift key in order to get out of danger quickly, which can be useful in instances where certain robots try to charge down a corridor, like a bloody headless chicken, for example. Holding down shift will allow you to run, as you would expect from most FPS games, and later throughout each level, much in a similar vein as other old school first person shooter titles, are secrets. Usually these are just off the beaten path, and generally I had little problem running into these, but for finding a secret you were generally rewarded with an extra boost of experience points to spend at the mod vendor. This game also does feature the occasional boss fight, and they are extremely few in number, and honestly nothing to write home about, and essentially every single boss revolves around running around aimlessly, dodging fire until the glowing fuck me lights appear on his body, shoot those, lather, rinse, repeat, and that's basically every boss fight in a nutshell. The game offers a pretty funky soundtrack that definitely works in regards to setting the tone of each level that you are playing through, and suitably it picks up in pace when you are fighting mooks, which works to get your heart pumping. Basically, I have no complaints in this regard. Graphics, on the other hand, are probably my least liked aspect of the game. Now, in terms of detail and general look, they're just fine. They look just fine. But everything looks washed out and devoid of all colour, which is especially apparent while playing through the first half of the game, where you're venturing through basically grey area after grey area after grey area. Eventually things change up, resulting in you going through brown area after brown area after brown area, and honestly I don't like this. The game could have benefited a great more from a much more diverse colour palette. Outside of the muddy colour scheme, however, the stages do offer plenty of detail, and they can be pretty nice to look at from time to time, but everything still comes across as too muddy and too bleak for my taste. Generally, the game itself is pretty well presented with an interesting art style, and unfortunately, that doesn't translate well to the in-game graphics. But the story is unfortunately not the best written thing in the world, and I actually had to rewatch some of the cutscenes a couple of times simply to make head to tail what's going on during the course of the game.
You're not telling me everything. Jesus, I hate your kind so much.
That's racist. Each cutscene is told in a comic book style animation, quite similar to Infamous on the PlayStation 3, which I honestly love. Outside of the hotkeys mentioned previously as well, the controls are tight, responsive, and all do their job well, allowing for easy switching between weapons, allowing you to get right into the fight quickly without having to pause for any reason. Ultimately, this is a very fun game that I felt fizzled out really quickly, and it ended really abruptly for my own personal tastes, which actually surprised me. Like, I got to the final stage and boom, the game just ended. I was like, what? But it's still a very fun time that I would heavily recommend, and if you own the original Shadow Warrior title or Hard Reset on Steam, then you can actually get this game for 85% off, which I think is more than worth it. It's not gonna blow any minds, but it is definitely a fun little romp that I personally would recommend. Maybe not a full price, but I would recommend if you manage to get the game for slightly cheap, like on a sale or something. But with that, that is it for the review, so thank you all for watching, hope you all enjoyed, don't be sheepish people, and I'll catch you all again. Bye!